Good afternoon, everyone. This is Osiris with the Cover City News and Stones in the Color of Rare Ankh Entertainment, interviewing a wonderful person that I have the pleasure of speaking to, Carol McDemas, who is the mother and promoter of her neon artist, steel and metal restoration artist, James McDemas. So first of all, hi, how are you? And thanks for sitting with us today.
Thank you, Osiris.
Inviting us into the studio.
Yes,
We met Mr. Larry Underhill, who is a very, very well-known photographer. For those out there that don't know who he is, really check his stuff out. It's off the chain. So the first question that I want to ask you, and then you can feel free to talk because you'll probably answer some of the questions as you talk, is how has your being a parent to a neon, steel, and metal restoration artist like James McDemas, how do you think that influenced his life?
It influenced his life from day one. He and I were alone together for many days. We didn't have a lot of money, so I would take him out in his stroller as a baby, and we would look at leaves, we would look at clouds. We collected things in little bags, and it was the small things, the found objects, that I think inspired him. We had a bag of toys. It was little tiny toys, and we kept them in the closet. And once in a while, when he was kind of looking for something to do, I'd toss the bag out on the floor, and he automatically would arrange them according to size or shape or color. So he became his own artist in his own fashion.
Mm-hmm. And how did he go into, what led him, what did you see in him? Did you try to direct him at all, or did you let him follow his own direction? And if so, to either one of those questions,
you
how did he go into welding?
always try to direct your children in a positive way, but James was his own person. He would go out and work in the yard and do landscape design and put things in a certain order, just because of his nature.
Wow. And how did he go into welding, and what led him into the steel and metal part of it?
He started out by drawing. An artist named Ed Emberley did a book on children's drawings, little stick clouds and figures. James met him the year before he died and thanked him. I bought him the book, and from that book he went into creating. His room was very artistic. Everything was in a certain place. When he ate his food, he would have everything laid out on the dinner plate a certain way. And when he was a teenager, he started working with paper and wire. Then he graduated to wood. He took a class in ceramics. All the while, he'd been keeping journals. He wrote a journal every day of his life.
About what? What was in the journal? Did he ever allow you to read the journal? Or?
I would never inquire or pry, ever. He had a life and thoughts that belonged entirely to him, and I don't think it would have been, I think it would have been offensive for me to go in and invade that part of his life. Mm-hmm. I have all of them in a box. I've never looked at them.
Wow.
Anyway, when he finished high school, he went over to Orange Coast College and found a welding teacher who was inspirational. He took several years of welding.
And where did he take several years of welding? What school?
Orange Coast College in Costa Mesa. Then he took a life drawing class at Long Beach State. Mm-hmm. He came over to Santa Monica City College and took courses. Then he applied to the School of Design. They had a special course for exceptional students, and he developed his skill. James respected art. James was involved with all aspects of art, and he wanted to touch on every kind of art. He could speak about art history, he could draw, he could take photographs, he worked in all kinds of metal. He understood the concepts of metal, how it's produced, how it comes from the earth. He started designing furniture when he was just a teenager. He went from furniture to art objects. He's done Christmas decorations. He worked for Marmel Radziner. and that was an architectural firm. I asked him why he went to work for them as a metal shop foreman, and he told me, I need to learn architecture, the lingo of architects. I don't have time to become an architect.
Absolutely.
So James wasn't just a painter or worked in just plastic or just plaster or bronze. He covered every base of art because he truly loved it. And it surrounded him. He created his own environment as far as art went. Mm-hmm. And that was all started from the time he was small, and he just grew and he developed. I had no idea until I came into his studio after he's passed away and I'm alone here, did I realize the body of work? Did I realize how meticulous he was? Did I realize that this young gentleman was just not my son? He was a man and an artist in his own right. Mm-hmm. He was a baby Eames. And that's what makes him different. He was probably the best of the unknowns.
Of the knowns.
Now he's becoming more and more known.
And that, unfortunately, that's what happens when people pass away. Sometimes they're not really truly treasured, unfortunately, until they're gone. But this is who he is. So he is here with us, as far as I'm concerned. Your
absolutely.
Art represents your spirit and the entity that the person that is. So what you're telling us, which I love, is that he not only was a neon artist, a still and metal restoration artist, he was a multi-dimensional artist, probably before the word multidimensional started really being used as loosely as it is used today.
Absolutely. Plus, he was a preservationist.
Wow. Talk a little bit more about that.
He liked old things.
Wow.
He liked old people because they had character and history. He liked old things, whether it was metal or any kind of a product. He has a collection of original foundry castings.
Wow.
From the old craft places in downtown Los Angeles. He has symbols and crests that are today probably on the tops of buildings still because he has the original castings. He saved all these things. He belonged to MoNA, the Museum of Neon Art,
yes.
But more so he belonged to the Conservancy. He was green before it was fashionable. He collected things from the time he was a teenager. He wore vintage clothes only. He had a wardrobe that was amazing because it was set in the 30s and the 40s and the 50s, and they're still stylish today.
Absolutely, they don't go away.
So James covered all art bases because of his respect for art. He surrounded himself with it. He learned to be his own contractor. He did his own plumbing. He did everything electrical. He designed his art studio. He found a need for something and he built and he created it. The list goes on and on and on. And I had to write down all of the different things that this gentleman accomplished because I couldn't remember them all.
Mm-hmm, and it's a lot.
His collection, he had hoped one day to open a museum.
Mm-hmm.
Half of the museum would be his artwork and half would be all these wonderful historic Los Angeles items that he had collected. Mm-hmm. And they are really treasures, beautiful things. Mm-hmm. But now that has changed. So I'm the caretaker.
And what a wonderful one you are.
There are people that felt everything should be tossed in a dumpster, that his studio had no value. And I have now proven them to be misguided in their thinking.
I like the word you said, misguided. That's a great word. It's kind of positive. And so it's not such a deep, like they didn't know what they were talking about, but they were misguided. I like that word, which leads me into the next question because you're, as I said, as you talk, you would probably cover a lot of the questions anyway. I'm just stimulating you to get the direction going. But I know that doing any kind of art, being an artist myself, and I'm sure you have some art ability, and certainly Mr. Larry Underhill, who is a wonderful photographer that we mentioned earlier, that happens to be here with us today. Is there any kind of physical, did he have a hard time recovering physically from having to deal with heavy pieces and carrying them and lugging them around and having to put them in certain kind of thing and lifting and all that? Is that kind of, did it wear him out or have any
James
physical
was
wear?
very, very slight, but he ate very well. Even when he was a teenager, he ate what would be called organic food today.
Okay, okay.
I remember him when I baked cookies once, and he said, "No, Mother, thank you. I've already had enough sugar today."
Oh, I love that.
He kept himself, he exercised every day of his life, even when he was on a little vacation. He always exercised. He took good care of himself physically. He built up his strength so that he could manage everything. But all of the pieces that he built and made, he made sure that they were transportable, that they would fit inside his truck.
Okay, so he was very economical and he found a way to keep
Absolutely.
costs down. And he was, sounds like he did most of his own things without having to hire staff or people like that. Or
He
did he
would
have
watch
someone
how others did things, and then he would simply copy it.
mimic? So he was a great mime. He could
But
mime
he
anything.
picked up on it very, very quickly.
And a quick learner. Quick
And
study.
he would always spend time around people who were gifted or respected when he could.
Mm-hmm.
Ralph Herman was a good personal friend that would
Mm-hmm.
encourage him to continue on with his focus on art.
Now, for those who
example.
don't know who Ralph Herman is, can you explain a little bit about who Ralph Herman is and
Yes,
why he was
is.
influenced?
He is a substitute father. He was an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
He has lives up in Paso Robles he has wine interests, and then he has interests in property in Los Angeles, and James would depend on him. Several of the